So the introductions are made. Paulo Portas is widely known. I work at TV, Media Capital Group, which has TV and CNN Portugal. And every Sunday night, Paulo Portas and I, we have a recurring topic. We always talk about the balance of power between United States, Russia, and China. And that's exactly where I want to start, Paulo. And I would like to ask you, and please enlighten us, how will the balance, the power balance between these three countries will affect our choices, Europe's choices, in the coming decade?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, Andrea. Congratulations to the summit and their organizers. It's a huge success. And the first thing to say is, no matter geopolitical or geoeconomic tensions, real estate is decisive for Portugal. Our problem was, during 20 years, lack of offer. So we'll need you. Let's go to the state of the world. Some trends to understand facts that sometimes are unexplainable. What are we witnessing? One, the attempt to replace a system of alliances by a system of powers. Alliances are based on rules and treaties. Powers are based on military force, namely nuclear. Second trend, to this system of powers, someone promoted Russia to the condition of superpower they don't deserve. Russia is not a superpower except on nuclear nukes. If you just pay attention to figures of Russian economy, they are not among the top 10. The third trend is United States thought that becoming closer to Russia, and I would say more friendly with Russia, would decouple Russia from China. That's a memory of the 70s of Dr. Kissinger and President Nixon, on the contrary side. But I don't think it will happen. The fact that the United States became more friendly with Russia is the source of enormous anxiety on the two sides of the Northern Hemisphere, the traditional alliance between US and Europe. And the core of this anxiety is, for the moment, Ukraine. But I think there will be a day after Ukraine, depending on the result. The fifth trend, and I will finish, is the unusual contradiction between geopolitical and geoeconomic tools. I have geopolitical goals, I have geoeconomic tools. I make you a very democratic question. Do you think you make friends with tariffs? That's what happened to India, which is nothing less the fourth economy of the world in the end of this year or next year. They overcome the UK, and now they will overcome Germany. And this was the moment to have complicity between Europe and the United States. Why? Because China is finally facing domestic economic troubles. A very shrinked level of GDP growth. Don't forget they were used to 2 digits, now fighting for 5 or around 5, as they say. And problems with debt, problems with FDI, problems with youth unemployment. So this would be, if you want to contain China, recognizing their achievements, obviously, but if you want to contain China, you needed a much better relation between the two sides, the third and second and first economy of the world. Sorry. And finally, so there are contradictions between geoeconomics and geopolitics. The core the core of the competition between the United States and China is high sensitive technologies. This will be the battle. Okay, high sensitive technologies, rare earths, and critical minerals. This is the penthouse of the tension between US and China. But don't forget, China, the trade tension between the US and China lasted 9 days. Between Liberation Day, so-called Liberation Day, and the day the Chinese said, we will restrict the export of 6 rare earths. That would cause a huge damage in the American digital economy. So, if you see it in a positive way, there are some stabilizers in the relation of the two first powers, the incumbent United States and the challenging China. This is how I see. Obviously, this is a huge dilemma for Europe.
And we have another dilemma. We have security issues that we should be really concerned about, especially here in Europe. That brings us to the role of NATO and its allies in the face of the current geopolitical landscape. And that being said, what should Portugal focus on to safeguard its national security?
I remember very well, Andrea, the commitment of the members of NATO with 2% investment and spending in defense. In Cardiff, 2014, if I remember well. Before the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, I think we must explain, as we talk with children, that it was Russia that invaded Ukraine, because sometimes we listen very bizarre things about it. But this said, before the war in Ukraine, you had 9 countries of NATO with 2%. Now, you have 31. So, Europe progressed, namely countries like Italy, Spain, and Portugal that were significantly under 2%. And I just share with you a detail. It's not a detail, it's more than a detail. Who has the largest defense budget in GDP percentage nowadays in NATO? It's not America. Poland. Guess why? Because they have the bear in front of their eyes. And they know what happened to them during the 20th century. They were divided coercively by Nazis and communists at the same time. So they have 4.2% of investment in defense. Okay? So what was the basic mistake of the Europeans? It's no more than a melancholic reflection. We turned the page. We believed, I don't, but we as Europeans, as community, we believed that there is such a thing, such a bizarre thing, like peace without defense. And one of the reasons to Mr. Putin invade Ukraine, he was sure that Europe had no defense strong levels. The way was green and open. There are 5 or 6 changes in Europe on the positive side. 1, Sweden and Finland are no more neutral countries. They are NATO countries. Second, the impressive U-turn of Germany. With 500 billion defense fund. I just remember, I shared during the lunch, I just remember how armed forces of Germany were state-of-the-art of the German armed forces before Ukraine invasion. 35% not operational. You will see Germany rising on defense. And that is a huge change. By the way, 10 days ago, the largest factory of ammunitions in Europe from Rheinmetall was inaugurated in Germany. So wait for Germany, okay? Then you have an interesting possible informal coalition, which is the two nuclear powers. We just have two nuclear powers in Europe. One exited, UK, the other one is France. It's a legacy of Churchill and a legacy of de Gaulle. Thanks God, because they are respected. And the Chancellor of Germany is suggesting that we should build a system, obviously centered in France and UK, with a nuclear umbrella for all the EU and UK. It's not easy. It's easier to say than to do, but it's the good way, because the only thing Mr. Putin respects is military strength. If you are weak, he advances. Straightforward. Those are good changes in Europe. Rearm Europe is a large program for investment in defense. I would add that to invest more on defense without reducing welfare state, you need one word: growth. And growth is the critical problem of Europe on geoeconomics. On the geopolitical side, it's defense. And so I think we are all committed with the 2%. I think the 3.5 are manageable. The 5% is imaginative. You know, United States spend 3.4. Nobody spends 5. But okay, this is finally, you have a balanced relation between Europeans and Americans. And like on economics, on defense, we should read Mario Draghi 10 times per year. It's the basic book. You know, the major problem of European defense, he gave his report shows an example. The Americans have two basic tank models. The Europeans 14. We have a too fragmented defense industry in Europe. And we have to cooperate more. Don't forget, countries like Germany, UK, France, Italy, Sweden, and Spain have national industrial strong bases. Detail. The new Prime Minister of France, we don't know how much time he will last, but I wish him the best, obviously. He signed the contract with the Portuguese industry of defense to buy Portuguese drones.
That's great. That's good news. You mentioned the investment on defense, and we should all agree that positioning and investment of the countries is greatly influenced by its economic capacity. And if we're looking to countries like Germany, France, and Italy, they are struggling with low growth and high debt. How is it going to...
Yes, those are... First, it's rationale. You can't wait. A Eurozone remarkable figure of growth if you have Germany in stagnation, France in trouble, and Italy grows modest. Those are the three largest economies of Eurozone. But the three crises are different, and probably the outcome will be different too. Germany has no problem of debt. Even if with the initial spending on the defense fund, their deficit will reach, for 1 year, almost 4%. But the problem of Germany was, I would say, Germany had a triple stars optimal constellation. They were used to sell cars in China, to buy energy in Russia, and to ask for help on security in America. The 3 stars in 2022 failed. So they have to reshape. I personally think, I may be wrong, I may be right, Germany has the best chancellor in Europe. Chancellor Merz. He knows what he wants. He knows who's the enemy, who's the friend. And he's independent from party politics because he has a huge professional life. Okay? Germany was expecting, after 2 years of contraction, to have a modest rise this year. But with tariffs on cars, tariffs on aluminium, and tariffs on pharma companies, this is not possible. So they will wait 1 year more, probably with a modest 0.2 or 0.3 growth, but they will reshape Germany. I have no doubts. Germany is our dynamo and motor, and they will overcome this crisis. The French crisis is completely
It's not the same thing.
It's unbelievably a debt crisis. I remember what said the final day of his government, the finance minister of France, last week. If there is no will to solve our debt crisis, IMF will land in France. Wow. What a wording. But sorry, do you know, I lived in France and I admire the French culture. But you know, when you ask a French, do you think, what is the age of retirement you think the Frenchies should have? 59. Sorry, there's no 59 retirement in a Europe where life expectancy grew 15 years. If you ask them if they are available to a relative stagnation for 1 year or 2 on the rise of spending, to cut the level of the deficit and to reduce the needs of financing the deficit, they say no. And they vote 2/3 for far right and far left. There is one thing in common between far right and far left. None knows about economics. Zero. Null. Okay? I just remember you that the leader of far right in Spain, in France, has the surprising idea of suspending France's participation in euro. You can imagine the protection of the debt of France out of the euro. Okay? This said, we have no visibility of what can happen in France. They have 7 prime ministers in this consulate. The number of days of a prime minister in charge is reducing significantly. So I will talk just about Italy. Italy has a talented prime minister, but the economic is not working very well. Sorry to say, it's 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, and every year under 1%. It's not enough. So they have a problem of competitiveness, and it's not new. It has some years already. By the way, bizarre thing, maybe we'll be back to this issue. Why Portugal and Greece reduced very well their debts, Italy and France don't. We had the same inflation. Inflation helped partially finance ministers to reduce debt, as we all know. But what happened? Portugal had 138% of national debt 10 years ago. Now, next year, 88, 89. First time under European average. It's an achievement. Greece, from 210%, remember, to 147. France, above 100%, now 115. Italy, 138. So something is happening differently in the European countries, but this is becoming a problem. We have too much relevant countries with a debt problem. Okay, we have to assess it, period.
You've mentioned different realities concerning the economic. There's a problem that it's Europe-wide, migration and labor shortages.
Yeah.
And on this subject, do you think we need urgent migration measures, or the reality that the media portrayed is a little bit...
Andrea, do you want facts or tweets?
I want facts, always facts.
If you want tweets,
I don't have Twitter.
I can lie you. If you want facts, you have to reflect on facts, okay? Average age of an European, 44 years. Average age of a Portuguese, 47. We are the second aging society in Europe after the Italian. So, number of children that the demographs calculate are the minimum to replace generations, 2 children per mother. Non-European country is now above 2. The last one was France, that has a very strong, namely tax policy for numerous families. Okay, the personal tax in France is not calculated with the couple. It's the couple plus children, not 2, but 4 or 5, depends on the number of children. Okay, so we have this problem. What is the critical question? To reduce or fix or reverse is very difficult, a demographic decline, you need time, you need compromise, and you need constancy. The current digital society is not very patient with time. You don't have results on demographics tomorrow morning. Chancellor Merkel, she has strong convictions about demographic situation of Germany. In 16 years in power, she contributed to the rise of the German fertility rate 0.2, from 1.4 children to 1.6 children, immigration included. Okay? So in the Portuguese case, we have no, to fix this question, to reverse or fix the question of demographics, as I told you, you need housing policies, your sector. You need tax policies. You need migration policies. You need labor policies, at least. And you need constancy during 20 years. Because if every government that wins elections changes radically the precedent policy, we go nowhere. Okay? So, my question is, Andrea, we will need, Portugal has no option of zero migration scenario. It will be bizarre according to our past, but it's not a reasonable scenario. We just have an option between regulated migration or non-regulated migration. But just think 15 seconds. What would happen to civil construction without migration? What would happen to hotels without migration? What would happen to restaurants without migration? What would happen to agriculture or delivery, our e-shopping, without migrants? So we need them, but we needed the regulated migration to expand 1 million people like it happened during 5 years, which is nothing, change the human panorama and exacerbate conflicts. We need to regulate migration, but don't think we can live without migrants with 47 years old average. We are not going to young people. Okay? It's not exactly a young average age. Okay?
Well,
we need it. We need it, but we have to regulate it, obviously.
We have like more than 15 minutes to the last two topics, and now...
You arrived to books?
No, I don't. Did you bring any suggestions? Did you?
Don't? No.
Oh. No, I think these next two topics are the most directly related to our audience. And my question for you and for your analysis is, where will global investment money flow, and will Portugal get a share?
I give you very good reasons to invest in Portugal, and I'm not being too optimistic. I'm benchmarking with other destinies in Europe, and Portugal solved a serious and severe financial problem in 1 decade. 2, there is a consensus in the Portuguese society, for the moment, that stable budgets, balanced budgets, and low debt are not only more reasonable but more fair solutions for a country. We learn lessons from financial crisis. We have now our debt reduced in 40 points. It's an achievement, I insist. And consequentially, we have our ratings improved. Not only Moody's, but Fitch, but Standard & Poor's. They have a consensus about Portugal. We were a troubling country. We are a success model. Okay, center-left contributed with one way, cativações. It's not necessary to explain. The center-right did it another way, but there is a consensus. We want balanced budgets. We are going to the third superávit. And we are now reducing corporate tax. And probably, if there is a budget, I hope yes, the personal tax. We have a very stable unemployment. If we can have a problem, it's a problem of scarcity, not a problem of too much unemployment. So the macro data are very interesting for investing in Portugal. We are, compare this with France, compare this with UK, compare this even with Italy, and compare the political situation in Portugal with the Spanish one. But I must say, Portugal and Spain performed both very well in the last 3 years, largely above Eurozone average. Remember, 2023, Portugal and Spain grew 2.3%. Last year, Portugal 1.9, Spain 3. This year, Portugal and Spain around 2 or 2.2%. The average Eurozone was 0.5, 0.8, 0.9. So we are performing very well. Why should I think twice? It's good to invest, namely on your sector. We have an housing problem. It's a problem of offer. We built much less housing in the last 20 years. Just pay attention to the figures. And we don't have enough offer for the demand we consider relevant. So we need your sector. We need to simplify. We need to deregulate partially. We need to reduce taxes. We need to be very attractive. We have some negative assets. Who hasn't in this world? Okay, so the Portuguese position to attract FDI is a good one. And by the way, for decades, Portugal has a deficit of capitals. So we need to invite foreign capital to compensate.
You more or less talked about our last topic. It is time to continue to invest in Portugal. For our final, for your final answer, what's in it for the investors here? We know that our audience is real estate, so is there something else besides real estate?
We'll have local elections in 3 or 4 weeks. But I think everybody in the town halls is now aware that we have to accelerate permits of building houses. We have to relax bureaucracy, too much bureaucracy, still too much bureaucracy. We have to reduce taxes. And the goals of our political authorities are very the goals on housing are very expansive. So they need to complete those goals with administrative simplifications that allow these goals to be fulfilled. So I think you will leave, okay, we have problems in Europe, we have problems in the relation with the US, we understand that the epicenter of gravity, of economic gravity of the world migrated to Indo-Pacific. But we are an old country, a safe country if you compare with others, a quiet country if you compare with some others. We are not extremists as society. And I think we have a basic consensus on not putting public finances against the economy. So we have an open way to a better growth. And I don't know growth without civil construction and the real estate sector. As you know, it's absolutely decisive. When you have a rising real estate sector, you have a good growth. When you have a stagnated real estate and civil construction sector, you have a problem. So I'm confident. I'm confident.
I'm very proud of us.
And very proud of us.
We
yes. We did in
like 35. Yeah,
20,
like
okay.
Very nice, very nice. Well done.
Okay.
Paulo Portas, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. And have a good seminar and summit. And congratulations.
Thank you.